T-Rex Tail tried to travel, flawed facade with flawless function, and Qidi's quirk quietly caused a calamity. Yes, we're going to be covering the Qidi Fire, like a dozen of you sent it to us. All this and more, PrintFix Friday, episode 186. Let's get into it. Starting off here with an individual asking how to make their support connection surfaces not look like this. We've got a support test part, or that's at least what it appears to be, and they've tried upping their Z top distance, and that made it look worse, which is correct. It should. But how do they make it look not horrible and come off easily? This is one of those fun challenges, especially with a single nozzle machine like the Ender V3 SE that the individual is using. The 0.2mm top surface is pretty much where you'd want that to be. So that is the top surface distance from the top of the support to the bottom of the part. 0.2mm, that should give it enough to have the support material do its job, but not fuse to the part itself. That is often a big challenge with 3D printers, is getting that level perfect. Now, we've seen that it is possible with different tricks to make this better. One of the best ways that we've seen it do this is with a Sharpie, to use it as your interface layer. So instead of having a distance between the top of the support and the bottom of your part, if you put Sharpie there, theoretically, you can print directly on top of it. Now, it's not something that we have personally tried. We're happy to look into it, but our good buddy Jan over at Jan Tech has done a great video showing it off. Honestly, it's just magic to me, to be honest with you, that that's even possible. That would be a great solution to this, but ideally having dissimilar support material would allow you to have a zero distance interface where you can put top of support, bottom of part right on top of each other. But with the V3 SE, it's just not possible. Okay, it's technically possible, but it is really complicated and involves lots of filament changes and things like that. It's more work than you want to put in with a single nozzle machine that's not designed for something like this. You can put a pause into the print itself if you would like, and then you can go through and color the top of the support material with a marker, and that would allow you to run a closer Z distance. But honestly, that part looks pretty darn good. That is about as good as you can expect from a 3D print without any crazy, like, going down a rabbit hole level of tuning. And that to me is perfectly acceptable, at least if you're running an Ender 3 like this person is. But machines like the Prusa XL, Bamboo H2D, even the X1, the P1, and the A1 series, which while those will do filament pooping changes, they are able to do multi-material. It's just not as easy. But the XL and the H2D have multi-heads, and they're able to do that. But Bondtech, Index, Soval SV08, hear me out. That would be super cool. If you do want to see our thoughts on the Index and the H2D, in fact, we'll card to it so you guys can take a look. And we did an entire stream just on the H2D with Now What We Know. If you do want to check that out, we'll card to it as well. And that was actually the stream where we crossed 50,000 subscribers live on air. So do want to give a huge thank you to all of you that made that kind of thing possible. Yes, merch is now available for sale. You actually see it down on that YouTube shelf, but now you can get the lovely long cat shirt, belt cat shirt, or the Prusa Mafia Victoria shirt, with a lot more coming soon. And there is a exclusive discount available for our Discord members, which is at the $10 tier and higher. Links are in that description down below. But I'd love to know from you all in those comments, do you think it is worth really tightly tuning your support material in? Do you think it's better to look at machines with multi-heads or some sort of filament changer to do a swap there? Or is this perfectly acceptable and there was just unreasonable expectations? I'd love to know your thoughts. And hey, by the way, my name is Grant, and this is PrintFix Friday, where we help you getting your printers back to printing with purpose. And if you are dealing with a printer failure and you want to get some help, you can reach out to us on all the social medias. You can slide into those DMs, email us directly, youtube@3dmusketeers.com, or my preferred option, film a little video, put it on your channel, and tag us in it. That way we can show it with video, better than photos often as well, and we can help you get your printer running right again, because we don't want printers to not be running, and we definitely don't want them to catch fire. Moving on to a FlashForge user asking, what causes this? We've got a flexi-t-rex here where the tail has decided that it no longer wants to be around. So they were printing this flexi-rexy, and on this one and another one, there's been a weird issue where parts and pieces aren't printing right. Does anyone know what might be causing this? They think it was the side touching the bed, maybe just didn't adhere properly. My best guess here, and I think the safe guess, is that these two tail section pieces popped off the build plate. Likely, the tip popped off first and then broke off the section right above it. And so it's moving around a little bit as the printer is trying to print it. So the print head will kind of drag the part around, but because the rest of the parts of this flexi-t-rex are properly adhered to the build plate, you don't see that issue there. So that would be my best guess as to what's happening. It is a relatively easy thing to do. If you are running into issues like this with flexible prints, you can lower your Z offset ever so slightly, like 0.02 or 0.05. Really small amounts to get that first layer to dig into the build plate a little bit. If it's happening in the same spot over and over again, regardless of the actual print itself, then it might be time to go ahead and clean that build plate. We do recommend hot water and dish soap for that good, proper clean, but in between prints, we use a ammonia-based glass cleaner and a paper towel to wipe the build plates down, and that seems to work out phenomenally well for us here at the shop. This is a common issue though. We've seen it happen. It's happened to us too, and it often sucks, especially when you're doing big flexi prints where a couple of the pieces break off and it's like, oh, I don't want to throw the whole thing away. It seems terrible to waste it, but it's really not a good way to fix that currently. Last but not least, the thing that over a dozen of you sent to us, a Qidi +4 that, according to the poster, caused a house fire, which, as you can see, resulted in a total structural loss of the home. Thankfully, no lives were lost. I've reached out to the individual to try to talk with them a little bit more, to learn more about it, and if we can, get a redacted fire report. I want to learn more as to what the fire marshal or fire inspector found, where that Qidi caused the fire, because we want to be able to test, verify, and if possible, replicate similar scenarios. Hey, Future Grant here. We have been in contact with the poster. There's a lot of updates. Stay till the end, because I'll be back, and we'll tell you what's going on. They have the new SSR. They've got, theoretically, the newest firmware. They only print PETG, where they don't even use that chamber heater SSR. Anyways, they were home at the time, they checked the printer, no signs of issues. And then 15 to 30 minutes after the check, the fire alarm is going off, they run over, smoke is billowing out of the top of the machine, and flames coming out of the rear panel went 0 to 60 real quick. And yeah, that can absolutely be a thing. Fires, especially with machines that are made of plastic, can spread quickly. It's why when we looked at the H2D, seeing that a lot of the interior panels, according to Bamboo, are fire retardant is amazing. And if that is true, that is awesome to see, and I wish more companies would do that kind of thing. The new style of heaters, these ceramic PTC heaters and the ceramic PTC heater used in the Qidi +4 chamber heater are significantly safer than your traditional old style cylindrical ceramic heating element, because being PTC means their positive temperature coefficient, which means as their temperature goes up, so does their resistance. Basically meaning that they can only get so hot. Even if you just run them flat out with a power supply, they will only get so hot. So it's unlikely that the heaters themselves caused it. My best guess is that there was something going on with the wiring itself on this machine, maybe a loose wire, that caused this failure. As we've shown in previous live streams, the old style SSR, which is not the one this individual has, according to them, during heat up routines for the chamber could reach over 200 degrees Celsius, which is not safe in any stretch of the imagination, and caused us to call out Qidi, who, not in the time frame that I would have liked, but eventually issued a fix for this, basically utilizing the SSR from the Q1 Pro, which was working just fine, and they should have done that from the beginning. What can we pull from this? Right now, without seeing anything, I can't necessarily put the blame on any specific component in the Qidi Tech printer. We will need to see the report from the fire inspector, because otherwise we don't know for sure. I am all for holding companies accountable and calling them out when things go wrong, but this is one of those situations where we want to be very right before we go down the path of saying you need to deal with this. Because if this was actually the Qidi +4, this individual did everything right and the printer caught fire, I firmly believe that Qidi Tech should be handling this and making the user whole. However, I need to understand more of it before we start pointing fingers. The last thing I want in this industry is people to wrongfully go after a company who might not be at fault. Was the IEC plug on the back a little loose and it sparked and created a fire? We don't know, but I would certainly say that having a machine made of fire retardant plastic that's UL 94V0 rated would have certainly, if not completely kept this from happening, certainly slowed this progress of fire down and would have enabled the user to attempt to put the fire out on their own. We have an individual here that is kind of summarizing some things for you. They're saying that Qidi isn't necessarily in the wrong, but they're saying that people are way too quick to take the word of an individual as an absolute fact. And I agree here. I don't believe that the poster is being dishonest in any way. I believe they're protecting their right to privacy, but it does make it a little tough for us to know exactly what we need to be looking at. This individual here is an electrical engineer, and they think the design of Qidi's SSR board was abysmal. I think literally, even if you weren't an EE, you could look at that and say that that was an abysmal design. And having that said, they don't believe that the SSR is likely to fail short if it's not being used at all. And I have to agree with that. You would know if it was having an issue. Now, see, the thing is, most modern 3D printers have thermal runaway protection. If your machine was thermally running away for some reason, it can turn off the heaters. But see, all the things that control the heaters fail short. So if you try to use the thing that has failed short to turn off the heater, it won't work. It's why I believe 3D printers need thermal fuses or a more sensitive system to determine when things are getting out of hand and to physically blow mains power to the printer itself. That would have likely saved this problem had it been something inside of the machine that wasn't a specific heat generation source. And I have to agree with this individual stating that what annoys them most, this is just spreading with zero critical thought in many cases. People just assumed that the band guy is stating fact in Qidi is doing a cover-up. Now, I have to be real here. Qidi never took any of the other users seriously from their recollection to us until we did the story about it. I don't put it past a company to attempt to kind of quell this a little bit, and I would certainly state that they would likely want to do some level of investigating themselves. I don't blame them. But we can see they've got a few different ways that most printer PCBs could have different adjustments done to them by adding a thermal fuse, which is a one time. When it blows, that's it. It's over. Vorons have them in their beds. A lot of silicone heaters have them in the heater themselves, like a lot of your bed heaters have it. It's great because it means that you now have to physically fix something before the machine can run again. It's the safest, but also if it goes a little bit above, or let's say that thermal fuse is not as accurate as you might want it to be, it can create some problems with you having to replace it. The bimetal cutout, in my opinion, is the best way to do it, where, as they state, at an example of 100 degrees Celsius, the thermal fuse would blow at 130 and then kick back on, shutting itself again at 100 degrees Celsius. They're cheap, they work, and because they're analog, they have a much, much, much lower chance failing. And then, of course, the mechanical relay. While we do love SSRs because they're fast, they're silent, mechanical relays, they're like that for a reason. They make that click noise, right? They're good. They got that ka-chunk. They're often designed for much more serious loads. That would add basically $1 to $3 to the bill of materials for a circuit board. And I'd love to know from you all down in the comments, do you take any fire safety protocol with your machines? If so, what do you do? That is something that we want to know, because we want to know what level people actually do, especially those of you that own 3D printer businesses. Personally, I say more solutions, more better. We keep fire extinguishers, multiple ones in this room, because we're not taking chances. And I believe there was someone in the comments saying, you know, I'm on the 3rd floor of an apartment. If my printer catches fire, it's getting yeeted out the window. And like, I don't blame you. Kick it out the window. Do whatever you gotta do to get rid of it. But certainly nobody wants this scenario. If you see smoke and flames billowing out of the back of your printer, the first thing you should do is grab a fire extinguisher. You should have a fire extinguisher near your printer. That is cheap safety that theoretically keeps this from happening. As soon as you can get the fire under control, blow the breakers. Turn off the power immediately. Worry about the physical flames. Once the flames are quelled, pull power. It's why we recommend, especially on machines with SSRs and MOSFETs and no way for the machine itself to cut power, put them on smart switches. Smart switches are very easy to install. Yeah, they pose some level of IT risk, but the bulk of you don't care about that anyways. So just put a smart switch on your machine, turn off the machine. This is a bad situation, no matter how you really stretch it. It sucks that this happened. I am incredibly thankful that you and your family are okay. I just want to be able to replicate the scenario here and try to determine what went wrong so that we can keep this from happening again. That is the big goal here with PrintFixFriday, where we help people get their printers back to printing with purpose. We don't want you to have these problems. So yeah, I don't exactly know where I stand on this. I believe that people should have better fire suppression for their 3D printers. That's the best place for me to stand here and say that if you don't have a fire extinguisher in your print room, fix that. We've linked some in the description down below. They're not expensive. Like seriously, a couple pound one is like 30 bucks. You know what's cheaper than your deductible on your homeowner's insurance? Every bit of fire suppression that I've been researching this past week, including some really cool fire blankets that are designed for lithium fires in vehicles that are rated for 70 minutes of pure lithium fire hell. A fire blanket that size is still cheaper than the deductible on my homeowner's insurance. There's no reason that you should not have fire suppression in your print shop. I said I'd be back, and here I am, Future Grant here. We have gotten in contact with this user. We are in current discussions. They have had a fire inspector come out, and we are awaiting the actual report so we can learn a little bit more. Insurance has their own inspector. They've attempted to contact Qidi Tech about this as well, because they have some current suspicions of where it could have happened. The user did let me know that they did have a machine with the original SSR, but it was replaced by them in early January, and their firmware is reasonably updated as of early January. So while they did do the SSR upgrade themselves, it should be okay, but there are some, potentials there. They did want me to be very clear in that while they are not a professional, they're also not a moron, which is what I say about myself all the time too. They've had the machine since October, and it's gotten a lot of use since December of 2024, around 12 to 16 hours a day. At this point, they are awaiting their insurance company with a private fire inspector, as well as an electrical engineer, to determine where this actually started. This is the big thing that we need to figure out. Where the fire started, why it happened. If it started by the Qidi or in the Qidi is two very different things, and obviously has different outcomes here. That doesn't change the fact that you should be careful with your 3D printers and keep fire suppression methods on hand, but we are still left with a couple of questions as to what's happening. I am in contact with the user. We will update you guys every week until we have some answers here. And if it did actually start from the machine itself, we will be attempting to replicate it here on the channel to see what happens and what you can do to make sure that this doesn't happen to your machine. So I'm going to pass it back off to past me, who, does he look better than me? I don't know. Looks a little shifty if you ask me. Let me know in those comments. Fires go from 0 to 60 very quickly. I hope that all of you stay safe with your machines. That's what we want. We don't ever want to see this on PrintFix Friday. This hurts me. But this is part of the risk that you take when you do go for a machine with all these features at such a low price point. You have to remember, they gotta value engineer something to make money. Safety stuff is really easy to value engineer out. We are still waiting for an official response from Qidi Tech as well, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, I've talked enough about this. I want to give a huge thank you to all our channel member supporters whose names listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you all for your support and helping us get to that 50,000 subscriber mark. And a huge thank you goes to the entire 3D Musketeers team, because ultimately without them, we wouldn't be here. Yes, I'm the guy that yells at things on the internet that you all seem to somehow put up with. But if it wasn't for the entire marketing team, the Musketeers, as they like to call us, from editors to copywriters to designers and everything in between, we wouldn't be where we are. If you do want to pick up some merch, that is linked down below. You can go to 3dmstore.com. Yep, I own that domain. If you do want to check out the rest of this PrintFix Friday series, they'll be right below me, and right next to that will be our live stream series with the +4, so you can take a look as to what we found the first time we ripped this machine apart on the backside to see what she had hiding underneath those plastic panels. That's all we have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.